II, whose messianic nuances look to the future for their realization here. Well, these biblical references describe a divine rather than a literal parenthood. Moreover, the Son attains this status by adoption. There's no suggestion that this Son did not have a human father. And according to some scholars, this is a late development in Christian theology, that Jesus was the Son of God from the moment of conception. And there's various arguments and wranglings about that. Some say that Jesus became the Son of God at his baptism. Some say that he became the Son of God at his resurrection, and so on and so forth. So they're still arguing about it, of course. Well, the Gospels themselves, this is on page 73, the Gospels themselves suggest an evolution in the meaning of the Son of God. And the beauty of the Dead Sea Scroll fragment here that we're discussing now is part of this development. By the 1st century, the concept already had a long, multifaceted history. See, this principle of the Son of God now, this has been applied to kings, to priests, to people in Israel, from people anointed in this world to saviors in the future. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, this concept appears as it had evolved shortly before the birth of Jesus. So this is kind of a remarkable historical instance of the principle of how the Dead Sea Scrolls help us illuminate the New Testament meaning of Jesus. So we can see that the ramifications for our understanding of Jesus in so many ways can be enhanced, it can deepen, it can broaden. The non-canonical information of various groups of people who did live in Jesus' time, that's not even elaborated on at all in the New Testament, has now come to light. And the beauty of these Dead Sea Scrolls, as Robert Eisenman has so rightly pointed out in his book on James, the brother of Jesus, and in his new book on the New Testament codes, these documents have not been meddled with. They have not been translated and handed down and changed as all of the documents in antiquity have been, including the New Testament. This is the idea of New Testament textual exegesis, you see. Textual criticism shows this very clearly. What these Dead Sea Scrolls show us is another aspect of Judaism that we were not as clear on, that we didn't have as much information or knowledge or understanding about, and we do now. And there are some beautiful studies that have been coming out within the last, say, decade or so, since the entire Dead Sea Scroll fragments have been brought out and allowed to circulate. And I would argue within the next 50 years, there's going to be some magnificent studies on the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'm going to contribute to this myself. There are many other texts. James Vanderkam, The Dead Sea Scrolls Today, a very excellent overview of the Dead Sea Scrolls. There have been symposiums on Messianism in the Dead Sea Scrolls that have been published now, and others of Israel's Messiah in the Bible and the Dead Sea Scrolls by Richard Hess and M. Daniel Carroll as editors, and there have been an enormous amount. The LDS perspectives on the Dead Sea Scrolls put together where the great Dead Sea Scroll scholar, where is he? Florentino Garcia Martinez. He discussed the Messianic hopes in the Qumran writings. His was the main discussion, and it's just an enormous study, a huge study. So various different groups are getting together and studying the Messianic ideas of the Dead Sea Scrolls and how it relates to all of the various faiths at this point in time. Christianity, Mormonism. Actually, the Spanish Christianity down in South America has been discussed in Hess's book, Israel's Messiah in the Bible and the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Messiah in Latin America theology. Even this is by Gerardo A. Alfaro Gonzalez, chapter 8. There are enormous implications all over the world because of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is their importance. It's giving us information that we can utilize to enhance our ability and understanding, to understand, what is the Bible all about? Well, gee, what is Israel all about? What types of Judaism have survived? What types of Christianity have survived? What has been lost? What is being restored through archaeological discoveries? There are speculations in the Biblical Archaeology Review and the Bible Review, the two magazines that Herschel Shanks edits. He's been editing now for a couple of decades, actually. There's speculations that there are still more scrolls out in the caves. We don't know if we've found all the Dead Sea Scrolls yet. So I say keep your eyes on the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's going to be some very important, significant discoveries about the Dead Sea Scrolls come out now. Now, what I want to do in the next podcast in this series, I want to do a series of Dead Sea Scrolls podcasts as well. Well, and I'm going to continue my analysis, my simplification of Hugh Nibley, absolutely, also. Don't lose faith and hope in me there, because he actually does. He discusses the Genesis Apocryphon, and Fitzmyer, Father Fitzmyer, has just recently released his third edition of his magnificent detailed study of the Genesis Apocryphon, which is a retelling of the patriarchal stories of Abraham in Genesis. Well, Hugh Nibley uses that in some of his writings about Abraham, which I will continue simplifying. So, I mean, there are just tie-ins all over the place. The Dead Sea Scrolls has relevance for almost every major patriarch. This was brought out very well in Dr. Flint's book, The Bible at Qumran, Text, Shape, and Interpretation, where many scholars discussed the ideas of the non-canonical writings of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Dr. Flint did extremely well on that one. And the biblical interpretation of Genesis in 1 Enoch by James Vanderkam. Abraham in the Dead Sea Scrolls, Craig Evans discussed Abraham. Moses, James E. Bowley discussed Moses in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And then we have Korah and Qumran by James M. Scott. And then we have 4QMMT and Paul and the Works of the Law. An extremely interesting connection by Martin G. Abegg Jr., who's up there at Trinity Western College with Dr. Flint up there in Canada. He discusses this idea of the works of the law in the New Testament work of Paul, and then Robert W. Wall has the intertextuality of Scripture. Scripture is a multivalent text of extremely wonderful new information on various aspects of biblical personalities and schemes and themes and events that we have now. So the many, many new interesting developments going on now. What I want to do in this next podcast, in this series, is I want to discuss the LDS side of things and discuss the LDS aspects of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Messiah. There has been some new, very interesting, remarkable studies done by my good friend John Toetness, as well as several of my colleagues there at BYU, but edited by Don Perry and Dana Pike, the LDS Perspectives on the Dead Sea Scrolls, their Dead Sea Scrolls conference. I want to elaborate on that also. So, thank you for listening to this Backyard Professor podcast series. I hope you're enjoying them as much as I am. I will see you on the next podcast. Remember, have a great life.